Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to the Digital Transformation Happy Hour. My name is Scott Dahl, and I'm the Program Director of the Masters in Hospitality Strategy and Digital Transformation at La Roche-Crans-Montana, and a professor in Revenue Management and Digital Marketing. And we're going to be talking today about a really cool competition we have called the Next Disruptor in Hospitality. So let me share a little bit about that with you. And I've also got a colleague with me who's going to join me. So let's go ahead and jump right ahead here, and let's bring my good friend, Alex Gamberoni, on the screen with us. Professor Gamberoni is a professor in entrepreneurial design, and he's going to be joining me today as we talk about this Next Disruptor competition and how to put together a winning pitch for it. So thanks for joining me, Alex. Bring you on here. Hello. Okay, excellent. So I don't know, Alex, if you want to say a quick word and say hello, and then we'll jump right in.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alex Gamberoni, as you see it. I'm a senior lecturer at La Roche-Crans-Montana. I'm also a professional coach, and I teach, as Professor Dahl says, Introduction to Entrepreneurial Design, but I teach also leading team to success and also about gastronomy. And I'm here to share with you, Scott, this fantastic competition that we have.
Cool. All right, so let's get right into it, right? We're going to talk a little bit about first about what's happening, but first let's talk a little bit about innovation in the first place. And obviously we're in a current time of crisis. I think that's not a surprise to anyone. But historically, crisis has been followed by a period of great innovation. So let me share a couple of examples with that. After the plague was the birth of modern society. After the Boston smallpox epidemic was the beginning of free press in the United States. SARS spawned e-commerce, and very specific to the hospitality industry, the travel slowdown after September 11th was the environment that created the perfect storm for the OTAs to emerge. So what this next go-round of innovation creates as a result of this crisis, I think no one really knows, but we do know that there will be a period of innovation, no doubt about it. So we've got a really cool contest going on. It's called the Next Disruptor, that's tough to say, in hospitality. And basically what it is we're asking for ideas, okay? And what people are going to do is first fill in a quick pre-screening form and then create a 5-minute pitch. And we're going to be talking about how to create a winning 5-minute pitch today. And then from that point, then there's a series of judgings, and eventually we'll get all the way to a winner. And we'll talk a little bit more about that process in a second, but let's talk about the winner. Let's talk about the prizes. Okay. First of all, after the elevator pitches, there'll be 60 people that move on to the second round. After the second round, there'll be 60 invitations to Switzerland. So look at that. So you're going to get an opportunity to earn a trip to come pitch your idea. And in addition to that, there are some partial scholarships that already come along at that level. But the thing that I really want to draw your attention to is over here, and that is that we're going to be offering a full bachelor's education and a full master's degree at La Roche to the winners. So there's definitely an incentive to getting involved in this competition. So let's talk about how you can win it. Okay, first of all, innovation is not disruption. Let's be really clear on that. Innovation is great technology, innovation is great ideas, but disruption truly changes business. And quite often, disruption is the application even of an existing idea into a new solution. So let's be clear about that. Simple innovation is the beginning, but it's not disruption. So basically, let me show you a couple things here. Hold on one second, Alex. And I would like for you, Alex, if you don't mind, chime in on the concept of disruption for a second. I've got 2 videos I'm going to tee up real quick. They'll take me 1 second. So.
All right. So innovation and disruption is 2 different things. I mean, as Mr. Dahl says, disruption is something that brings you to a new path. It will open a new market, definitely. It will create something that will be shaking a little bit the existing ground. Right? There are some disruption that we're going to talk with Mr. Dahl. Is the first one that comes into my mind is Airbnb. Before Airbnb, hotels were classical. People would have go to hotel and take a room, etc. When Airbnb came, the market of hotel industry started to shake, started to put things in front of Airbnb, saying, no, we don't want them, we don't want them. And they had to adapt at a certain point. Now, Airbnb is something that is bigger than any other company, I would say. and they generate a lot of revenue. So that is something totally disruptive because it's opened a new market. And Professor Day has got as well a lot of different examples that he can share with us.
I actually, what I thought I would do is share a couple of interesting pieces of existing technology and introduce something that I think would be a disruptive and innovative idea for hospitality. And then we'll kind of follow that through the process. So let me first share this video with you. So hold on just a moment. Here we go. And should be there. And now, okay.
I'm in a hotel in the medical center. You can imagine here they'll be housing a lot of what we consider part of the vulnerable population. So I came to find out how they're disinfecting their rooms. This is the Light Strike germ-killing UV robots to sanitize and disinfect rooms at the Westin in the Texas Medical Center. Until now, use of these high-tech robots has only been in healthcare facilities such as MD Anderson. Dr. Sarah Simmons says while chemical disinfection has always been the gold standard, this technology is a game changer, killing every germ the light touches. For hotel guests like Pat and Alicia Curry, they say it's been very reassuring.
You could tell that it made us feel really comfortable that this thing was 100% sanitized.
I'm in a hotel in the...
Okay, so that's the first one. I'm going to tee up another one in a second. But I think one of the things that we heard very, very plainly was this technology has not been used in hotels up until now. So clearly it's a technology that exists, but based on current events, Alex, pretty timely, right? That this would be something that would start to impact the industry, right?
Yeah, that's going to be connecting.
That's exactly right.
In hospitality, the restaurants you will see as well.
Okay, so now I want to share another piece of information with you. I think you guys will find this one to be interesting as well. So hold on. Okay.
Hello? Your delivery has arrived. While he is waiting outside your door for you to pick it up. Hello? We got 12.
Okay, so Alex, the reason I shared both of those pieces of technology was because both of them exist, right? The one has been used in healthcare for a couple of years now, from what I understand, but that other piece of technology is actually in use at a hotel that I'm familiar with in Los Angeles area. But it's very interesting. It's been around for about 5 years, but minimal uptake. So now my idea is let's take those two existing technologies, and considering now that people want less contact potentially with people, let's come up with a clean way to deliver room service, to deliver Uber Eats and those kind of things. So in other words, let's create a situation where we're taking advantage of the current climate and limiting contact and innovating in hotels. So that was my idea. So let's take a look at it. Let's evaluate it for a second. Just a moment here. Okay. Come on. There we go. All right. And let me share this with you. So let's talk about that. So, you know, when you're working on an idea for your pitch, clearly this is what you need to be thinking, right? You need to be thinking, does it meet a need? Okay. Are you solving a problem that needs to be solved? Okay. Does it challenge the status quo? Think about it for a second. If you were coming up with the concept of Uber, you clearly challenge the taxi environment, for example. Is it scalable? Once you have the idea and you work out the kinks, can you create a large-scale business or a large-scale implementation from this idea? And the final one is there a savings, or does the additional cost justify, is the additional cost justified? So if you think about those things being the test, let's take a look at that idea that I just shared, and we'll see if it passes the test, right? So my idea, right, a robotic food delivery system that includes hospital-grade sanitation. Okay, so I think it clearly meets a defined need. right? What do you think? Yeah, it does. How does it do as far as that goes? Clearly, it meets a defined need. Does it challenge the status quo?
Oh yes, definitely, definitely, because people are looking for very sanitized things, and it would challenge the way we deliver food.
I also think it's interesting. I think that the luxury industry, part of the industry, has been very averse to eliminating people contact, because they say it's a people business, it's service and those kind of things. But I'm wondering if potentially in the near future, if safety isn't going to become the new luxury. So I'm wondering if it doesn't possibly challenge the status quo like that too. Is it scalable? Yeah, I think once you iron out the kinks, you can start building
that in a retail industry. You can use that same thing. They deliver things that are totally sanitized. So
absolutely,
definitely scalable.
Imagine if a food delivery company went to a hotel and said, "We'd like to deliver exclusively in your hotel, but we're going to install this machine so that our drivers never enter your building, but the food gets delivered all the way to the guest room without human contact." That might be interesting, right? That'd be a very interesting proposition. And finally, does it save money? Well, in fact, that robot leases for $2 per hour. And in the Los Angeles area, the labor that it replaces is about $25 per hour, including benefits. And yet uptake has been relatively slow. So it does save money, even already, but the question becomes, now is it justified as a result of the change in the climate that we have? Make sense? Cool. Okay, so let's talk about how do you put together a winning pitch. All right, so do me a favor, Alex. I'm going to let you jump on this one because this is your thing, but the beginning, right?
Beginning with a hook. Yes. The hook is something that's going to attract the attention, that's going to help the auditory to identify themselves with what you're going to say. You could have started, for example, "Hello, ladies and gentlemen, my name is such and such, and I will present today's this and this." And that's classical. It's not something that people are attracted to or get identified to. However, if we take the example of the product of Scott, what if I tell you that I can deliver the food to your apartment, to your room, 100% sanitized? People identify with that. You ask a question, you place in front of a statement, and they will be focused and interested to know what's coming afterwards. And that is the way to start a pitch, is to really have that hook. And there are plenty of different ways to do it.
Yeah, I mean, my hook might be on that one. Have you ever just had contact with a person and then heard them sneeze and been worried? So there's a lot of ways that you can get someone's attention and kind of get something started, for sure. No doubt about it. It's a great point. Okay, so let's take a look and let's roll forward a little bit here. Hold on. What's our next one? Oh, this is a good one too. Okay. So the next one is, right. Okay, here it comes. It's eventually going to show up. There we go. Okay. So to me, I think that it's very important, right? It's this continuation of your hook. You want to make sure that you explain why you're satisfying a need that needs to be met by people. One of the things that I find a lot in working with innovative companies in hospitality is that very often the tail is wagging the dog. In other words, someone with an amazing technology solution comes to a hotel and says, "Here, you need this." When in fact, the best solutions happen the other way around. The best solution happens when a business person approaches a technologist and says, "I need some help with this problem, and I think technology can solve it. Can you solve it for me?" Because then it becomes a very clearly defined need, and now all of a sudden you know that you're meeting something, that you're meeting a need that's important. Almost like that company that first came up with that service robot 5 years ago. They might have done some research and understood that uptake was going to be an issue because the industry is slow to pick up on stuff like that. So clearly, you got to start out with your need, and you got to make sure that you help people understand how your solution satisfies it.
Definitely.
Okay. What do you think, Alex? I mean, there's a need for the product that we talked about. I think.
Oh yes, there is a need. There is several needs. I mean, depending the country where you go. I mean, the product that you say definitely will cover your introduction. Have you ever seen anyone sneeze? And imagine a human being, coming and sneezing on top of your dish when he tries. I mean, that's unthinkable, right? With that kind of things, it will never happen. And there is also total anonymity. I mean, people will not be disturbed by someone sneaking in or whatsoever. I mean, there is a lot of question that you answer with that. And you can identify the need and say, hello, here is the solution. So yes, definitely.
Yeah, there's actually was a very interesting question from Adrian Artemoff that was posted. And it said, would this pandemic disrupt the disruptors? Which I think is a really interesting, it's a very interesting stance. No doubt it's disrupting the disruptors in the form of people that in December and January thought they had the greatest technology solution on the planet for hospitality that now no one's even willing to talk to them about. Because 6 months ago, we were talking about using artificial intelligence to personalize the booking engine. We were talking about all kinds of really great stuff because demand was high. Now, I think the most important innovations to answer Mr. Artemoff's question specifically, in my opinion, is not only going to be that safety stuff, but how do we communicate about safety? How are we able to have the customer understand that they're going to be taken care of when they arrive? Because it's one thing to have a very clean hotel. If you're not able to communicate that, you're not going to have the opportunity to get the booking in the first place. So the whole process is going to have to evolve in terms of being able to create that feeling of safety that you allude to in your question. So let me ask you this. It's a good question actually from him, Alex. Do you think people are going to feel more safe in an Airbnb or in a traditional hotel room?
Well, I mean, I think the Airbnb needs to go to adapt at a certain point. I mean, the people that are having the Airbnb need to adapt to that technology as well to be able to sanitize the place. So a good disruptor will have to adapt at every changes, and it's a quick adapter. So Airbnb, if he wants to continue, if that safe environment, sanitized environment is easier to do in traditional hotel rooms, they're going to have to adapt with that. So maybe Airbnb, or there is a company that can be created to approach Airbnb provider in order to rent those lamps in order to sanitize the whole thing, for example.
Yeah, I think for an individual Airbnb owner, I think that machine is going to be quite expensive to get a return on investment. But I think you're right. I think there's an opportunity to provide a service with that that has a similar. There's a whole emerging business model of people servicing Airbnbs. For a margin of the revenue, and I think that only goes further when that servicing requires a different level of expertise. I mean, let's face it, hotel clean and hospital clean have not been synonymous up until now, but I think in some cases they may become very, very similar terms in the not too distant future, for sure. So let's see. There's another question here. Will we shift from Butler Concierge Service to AI Butler Concierge System? So that's an interesting question. It's a perfect time to talk about that. But why do this technology has been around for 5 years? It's 10% the cost of a human being in the Los Angeles labor market. Why isn't it more widely used?
Well, I think it's because you got two different kind of markets. You got the people who are tech savvy and tech oriented and want that kind of things, and you will have a market for that. So as we say, disruptors are opening a market, and you have that market that people do not want to waste time to deal with human beings. They want to directly go with what they want. But there is a lot of markets still existing that always will prefer that human contact. So it's to find the balance. Now, will hotel have both? I would say, why not?
Yeah, I think because I actually would put myself in a very interesting category of both of those. When things are normal, I would rather check in with a human being because I might want a little help with a restaurant reservation. I want someone's name if I've got to go downstairs because no one answers the phone. Like there's a whole point in sort of having some human contact with the business. But the reality is, if we're in the current situation we're in, I'm the first one to walk up to a kiosk and get my key. So it's really, I think a lot of people would fall into both categories. It'll be interesting to see how much of this ends up being contingency planning. Do we have these robots and do they just sit in the closet until the next time we have this kind of a problem, or do we incorporate them more into the daily operation on an ongoing basis?
As a guest, I would like to have the choice as well. Because there are some situations, as you say, that I've got time. I want to have that because I need some suggestions and I need someone to understand my feelings as well. And that's why I would like to interact with a human being. However, for things that I may be in a hurry and I know that I've got that on my computer and I can check directly with the AI, why not? I mean, to have that choice, I think it will be the lux. Okay, because I can choose. Imposing AI to some people, that would be maybe disturbing.
Yeah, so here's an interesting question. Then we'll kind of move on from this topic, but I'm always fascinated by it, and I love talking with you about it because between the two of us, we cover most of automation in the industry. Right? You're an expert in the operations side and in the service delivery side of it. I play a little bit of the distribution side, so between we make a whole human. But it's interesting to me. This is a very good question from Samia Saab. She's asking about chefs, and I would expand that a little bit more. How about the difference between front of the house and back of house? Because it seems like there's been a little more uptake in the back of the house, but certainly not like the automobile industry, right? So, I'm curious, do you see that changing, or do you see there being a divide between customer contact and non-customer contact with automation?
I mean, automation in the kitchen, because here the kitchen is about chefs, right? And the question is about chefs. I think for regular kind of food, like I would say coffee shop, I would say cafeterias, I would say that kind of things made by robots, I would be no problem. I think it is possible to replace the chef. However, as soon as we want to place a character in a cuisine, you need the human being, because cuisine is a lot about emotion. Right. And robots will do the recipe to the perfection, but they will not bring that emotion. What makes the good of a chef is when I add my spice, it's never, I don't wait it before. I just take and I put it like that, and my mood's gonna have that little plus that what a robot will never have.
Exactly. I
again got two markets here.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's we have this very same explanation when people ask us if AI is going to replace the revenue manager. And I would say, no, AI is going to enable the revenue manager. As you mentioned, that robot can very, 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 very effectively duplicate the perfect thickness of a carrot, more so than a human being can. And it doesn't get tired. It works 20 hours a day and so on. AI can do those things, but the robot can't innovate. In our case, AI is good for replicating existing patterns, but if you want to change the strategy of a hotel, a person has to get involved. So I think we're kind of in the same situation. Yeah, very similar.
Our creativity, our emotion will never be replaced. And at a certain point, that instinct we have as a revenue manager, you got that instinct, that intuition, say, okay, no, I think we're going to go there. AI cannot do that. AI needs data in order to be able to give an answer. And that data we have, I mean, that instinct, intuition we have, it's us. It's part of being a human.
Exactly. Yeah, all of those things, they need historical precedent so they can repeat it. So if you want to be innovative, you've already eliminated it. So yeah, that's a good point. So there's one question, I think this is directed to me about my product. Does the robot sanitize the products? If it doesn't, it was originally handled by human. I completely agree. Actually, the idea was, I wasn't perhaps very clear, but the little container where they were putting the towels that's got light, my idea was to put the UV light in there that cleans up the product. So that's a good point. There's also one other question here from Kavi, and this is about, I'm going to do a shameless commercial, and then we're really going to move on. This is about, can we come up with a tech savvy course like Silicon Valley? I'll send you the check, Kavi. Thank you very much for asking this question. In fact, we do have a master's degree in hospitality strategy and digital transformation, very similar. And if you, we can definitely get you some information, but the curriculum is very much driven towards the technology side of hospitality, exactly the topics that we're talking about. So great question. Okay. All right, cool. So let's move on to the next thought here. Let me fly this forward and then share the screen. And the next tip that we would have is your enthusiasm with research.
Yes.
So
go ahead, Scott.
Okay. No, I was going to. So to me, I think that the most important part of your pitch is your enthusiasm. The most important part of a startup is the innovator's enthusiasm. Investors look at startups, they see the good and bad, but one of the things that they're really interested in is your energy level. So your energy level has to come through. We'll talk about that at the end, really, because it's one of the most important things. But if you're relatively new at this, you're not an expert. So use quotes. If you're contemplating an innovation in the food delivery business, there's all kinds of amazing statistics about the rapid growth of the food delivery business. So solidify your own opinions with expertise. Use research.
Definitely. And if you come with statistics, if you come with graph, that's always convincing people, because that's a mental impact that you place in the mind of the people, and they're going to be, oh yeah, I mean, the energy you have, we're going to come back to that, as you said, but it is something very important. But if at the same time you have figures, you have graphs, you have something that support what you're saying, that flow the energy toward one direction, and that's fantastic.
Yeah, and sometimes we talk about the concept of edification, right? So edification from the Roman of a building, right? The foundation and those things. It's basically saying, what we're saying is, I can't give myself credibility. I can say I'm an expert and you can believe me or not believe me. But if when Alex introduces me as an expert, then everyone becomes more believing in that. And so you can use, obviously, experts and credibility, but you can also support yourself with research. And sometimes a couple of very well chosen quotes will really have a tremendous amount of power to be able to demonstrate the size of a market for your idea, or customer acceptance, or different things like that. So clearly, research is going to be really, really critical. Use research to support your
Even if I can add something here, if in your pitch you have maybe one cut, like 2-3 minutes of an expert talking about it, okay, that shows as well credibility, because someone is talking about an idea that you want to bring. So there is all that will support who you are and what you're bringing forward. So yes, I mean, use whatever you have in your surrounding in order to increase that credibility that you have.
Yeah, I think as an entrepreneur, one of your most endearing qualities could be humility. You're not being expected to have all the answers. You've got a great idea. You've done your part, to be honest with you. It's not about having to do all of the pieces. And so I think it's super important to be able to understand the places when you should rely on outside information to establish your credibility instead of trying to establish your own. Great point.
There is also Ernesto Cirolli, who is a PhD in entrepreneurship, and he says none of the iconic company that you know is started by one man alone. You have the idea, that's fantastic, and that's what you're going to bring, but you need to find someone that's going to sell the product and someone that's going to manage the money, basically. And that's by presenting your pitch, that's what you're doing. I've got the idea. Now I need people that's going to help me drive that toward the market.
Yeah, I tell you what, this is a great comment from Rajbir. Enthusiasm and energy with adequate attention towards avoiding overpromising. That's a really good point. That's right. You're not trying to save the world here. You're trying to disrupt. Okay. So, and I will say when you overpromise, you draw skepticism. When you underpromise, you draw supporters. So clearly, to underpromise is going to be a much better approach, because you'll have people saying things in the back of their mind like, those are conservative numbers. This could even be better than that. Where a slightly overstated number will cause people to have the other opinion and go, come on, this might be a good idea, but there's no way it's that good. So it's really, really important. I think, Roger, that's a great piece of advice, to make sure that you kind of set it up properly with the right objective so that people know. And again, this is not a competition. It would be wonderful if someone came up with the next Uber, but sometimes the best disruption is very elegant. Sometimes the best disruption uses existing technology in a new way. The product gets to market quickly. It's a solution that people accept. Just no one ever thought of using that to fix this. And so sometimes that's the best disruption, is a term that we use a lot, which is elegant. Right? So that's a great one. Let's see. Here's a question.
Thank you, Rajveer.
That's a fantastic question. So okay, so let's jump on to the next one. There's a couple of good questions here that I'll definitely be able to work in, though, for sure. So all right, hold on one second. Here it comes again. All right. Okay. So use visuals to highlight your key points. What would you say to that, Alex?
Yes, use visual, but you need to be careful with it. Too many, not good. Too few, not good. Use the adequate one. On one slide, no more than 2 or 3 information at the same time. No more than that. But be very analyze when you want to give your idea which one are essential, and bring those one on a visual. And the visual should support what you say, not the other way around.
Absolutely. That's a great point. I think when we talk about research, research and visuals is an interesting pairing. If you have a point that you're trying to make that's very important, if you say it, some people will hear it. If you show it, some people will see it. If you say it and show it, you're going to have the most likelihood of it being absorbed. And then if you only use 3 or 4 graphics effectively by your own selection, you're telling people what pieces of information are important for them to take away. So you can absolutely shape the presentation very much by choosing the right visual graphics. Also consider, just in the example that I shared, one of my points was I'm not inventing any technology for that innovative solution for hotels. And so by showing a little bit of video of those 2 different pieces of technology in actual operation, it certainly takes away anyone's doubt when they say, there's no light that can kill that germ. Well, I just showed you that light in actual operation. So clearly, if there's a point that you need to get across, visual is super powerful. Certain people absorb visual much better than they absorb words. I personally am one of those, and so I think that it's really, really an important asset in your presentation to make sure that you draw the right things forward by using those visuals.
Exactly.
All right, let's go on here to the next guy. Okay, this one I love. This gets us on a good conversation too. So here it comes. We're going to give it a second, but this is the part that was good. That's be authentic.
Yeah.
Right. There's just no shortage. There's no underestimating the value of being yourself. The reality is you have the idea, but the idea was born in you. And so when people talk to you about your concept, they want to get to know you a little bit. They want to get to know your belief in it. If you can convey your belief, it goes a really, really long way. If you don't seem genuine, it doesn't come across right. It's super important to be authentic. Authentic is much more important than polished. If your older sister is a stunning news presenter on the local news and she speaks extremely well, I would rather have you present your idea. I would much rather have it come in your voice, right? I would much rather have your heartfelt emotion behind what you're thinking about and how you feel this solves a problem. So authenticity is, to me, it's the key. It really is it's the price of entry. Let's put it that way.
It is a key. I'm pretty sure you've made the experience that if you ask someone, okay, this is the idea, can you present it, please? Even though the person is going to do that fantastically, you will always be frustrated because it's missing something. Right? And because, no, I would have done it differently. And that's what we want. We want you to be authentic. We want you to be yourself. Don't hide it. To perfect, hide something. So don't go for perfection. Go for true. Go for authentic, for your heart, your emotion comes on that. And the people that are listening to you will see that, yes, you believe in what you believe. And you will communicate that belief to them. And that's what is important.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's really, really critical process that, your credibility is going to come from that. If you truly believe in something, people measure that. It's one of the things that is very intuitive in us. It's the ability to judge someone's sincerity. And when people speak from their hearts, I think most people would agree that it really does. It has an impact. And I think it's super important to be able to do that. It'll come across. There's really no substitute for looking right at the camera and saying, this is a really good idea, right? Because if you don't believe it, no one else can believe it either. So I think it's a super important piece, very important.
Something I'd like to add on that, on authenticity. Being authentic is to bring that energy, that passion that you have, but be coherent as well. Being authentic is to be, yes, coherent in what you want to say, align with what you want to say, bring the energy in, channelize energy. Otherwise, if you go a bit everywhere, people will not follow you. Right?
Yeah. Authentic is amazing, but no one wants to go into business with a crazy person. So you're exactly correct, right? Yeah, you definitely want to show that balance of both of those. No doubt about it. No doubt. So Alex, let me ask you a question then. If you're thinking about this whole thing and you were going to sum it up, what advice would you give somebody as they're putting together a pitch? And then we'll take a look at the criteria one more time, and we'll take a look at some questions.
Hook, definitely be clear with what you want to sell. Clear, crystal clear in your mind. Bring that energy in and use visual cautiously. really the important stuff. I mean, straightforward. Don't go for details. If they want more information, they will ask the question at the end. Go straight for what you want.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point. I think that I'm going to focus on. I think that's all great advice. I'm going to focus on the one thing you said, which was they'll want more. And I think that's a really interesting thing with the pitch. Sometimes a very important piece of a pitch is finding the balance of what information not to include. It's leaving. Sometimes we use the term leaving a little meat on the bone.
Exactly.
Because I've seen pitches that in 5 minutes talked people in and right back out of the business opportunity because they just went with too much detail. They went too far and they started to share their fears. Mm-hmm. If we're going to be business partners, I promise we'll get into your fears, but put your best foot forward and leave a little bit of uncertainty, leave a little bit of mystery in it, and people will follow up with you. Right? If it's a good idea, they'll sense it.
And if they're interested, they will ask those questions. Be ready to answer them, though. I mean, have the information. Wonder what kind of question they can ask and have the answer within yourself. Don't be surprised by the questions. Okay, but don't give all the information. Just what is a need for them to, yeah, but I've got a question, and that's what you want, basically.
So I tell you what, I'm just going to share some comments because there's some really, really interesting comments here. Okay, so let's see this one. I like this one. I thought this was pretty cool. Nail the point with all the senses so they can feel, touch, and sense. Absolutely the case. Sound is amazing. All that stuff is amazing. I've been to pitches before that were in person where someone handed out a piece of the product or whatever. It really goes a really long way. You can see people become very engaged when they touch something, for example, and many people are very tactile.
Something I can add on that, you need to be able to use at least 3 channels. I mean, you need to have the images for the visual people, means the graph that you have in your mouth, the visual support, the way you present, etc., etc. Then auditory, use your word carefully. Have a good one. Make sure that your speech is flawless and make people feel either emotion or feel themselves with the idea in their mind. If you can succeed to do those 3 things, the message will go through.
Yeah, I completely agree. Here's another good one too. This is from Himanji Grover. She asks, if, for example, you're pitching a brand new idea where you may actually have to create visuals or videos, that would be costly. Completely agree. How can that be solved? I'm sure, Alex, you have a couple of tips. I can share a couple of things. There are some pretty cool animation sites that you can actually create very credible looking customer interaction and things like that with animation that are quite cool. And then what I would tell you is this is one of those places where your enthusiasm is going to win over your polish. Create it very simply. Act out the video. In the case of my food delivery example, I could see using my granddaughter's Barbie house and the Barbie car and delivering some food and showing what that would look like being contactless. Again, it's going to convey the idea very well. And I promise you, if you see me playing with Barbies on a video, you'll remember my pitch, right? So there's no question about that as well. So I wouldn't be afraid, Himanji, to be a little bit, to be creative and to not be super polished. It's not our expectation that these are professional pitches. We want to get in touch with people that are the leaders of tomorrow. And so if there's some creativity and some fun in it, and it doesn't quite have all the polish of an advertising agency, to me, that's conveying you. That's your own genuine authenticity. And I think it's totally cool. I wouldn't have a problem with it. I don't have a problem with stick figures. I wouldn't have a problem with graphics. Here's my on-screen graphic. Make sure you can read it. That's okay. I don't think there's a problem with that one bit. I think it's really okay.
Is the idea that you're going to bring, and if you can demonstrate that even with piece of paper or carton that you're going to show a maquette of it.
Right. Exactly right. I think it's completely okay. So I would say just, in that particular case, overcome the budget with creativity and it's fine. And think of my example with Barbie and the Barbie car and Uber Eats. That's
and they were
I'm sorry if that's disturbing for some people, but this is an example. Let's see. Authenticity can be swung both ways. This is an interesting one too, and then we'll kind of move on. But authenticity can be swung both ways. How do you understand as an investor if the person pitching is being authentic or just presenting for the sake of it. There's a risk, right? I was talking earlier today about people that interview like that. I've had a couple employees over the course of my 30 years in the business before I started teaching that the single best interaction I had with them was the day before they worked for me. They were just amazing at presenting themselves and really not much else. And they didn't do a lot of work. So there is that risk, I think. But I think it's also the more experience people have with this, the more they're used to sorting through all of the individual quirkiness to finding the authentic person. And pretty soon, I think most of us, if it's not very conscious, at least we start to get that little alarm bell. This doesn't feel fully genuine. It doesn't feel authentic to me. So I think that for the most part you can sense it. But there are people that are really, really good at that. To answer your
I mean, you can have good actors, huh? Good actors that are going to present something, right? But as Professor Dahl says, I mean, it's going to be your gut feeling. If there is a doubt, there is no doubt, right? And normally, authentic people, they will make a little mistake or have some not perfect things the way they present. You cannot fake that. So that would be very difficult to fake that. Authenticity, when people is too perfect the way they talk about it, you may have a doubt. So ask questions that will disturb them at a certain point. And if they're really authentic, they're gonna maybe, oh yeah, good question. And then they're going to bring you the answer. The person that is prepared, too prepared, will have an answer that is quickly done. And that show that is not authentic. But it's feeling mostly.
I think another one that I find sometimes is I find people in that situation, they don't answer my question. They provide an answer that they think sounds nicely, but it's not really geared towards my question. It's kind of like, okay, I've got these 5 answers and I find a place to put them. And okay, this is the one you're going to get answer number 3 because it's the closest one.
Exactly. And the authenticity is something that is from the first moment until the end. When there is authenticity and suddenly not, and then here for me, there is a doubt.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there is something that you have to be careful. But I was saying to my student this morning, learn all these soft skills, nonverbal communication, people skills, etc., and all that at a certain point will play in your favor, and you will be able to see and to feel more than to see that people are not really authentic.
I can remember the position in my career when soft skills became more than half. I remember it very well. When all of a sudden I was spending more time managing people than I was doing my craft as I thought of it. So yeah, for sure. Here's an interesting one. I keep getting these great questions, right? At times it's complicated to deliver clarity. For example, you know the idea and your imagination is clear, but sometimes it doesn't capture the audience. How can you solve that? And my answer to that's pretty brief and pretty simple, and that's practice. Practice, deliver it, practice again, practice. The best pitches, we've given you 5 minutes. I've actually participated in elevator pitch contests that were 60 seconds. Every single word got chosen for a reason when you're doing that. So I would say practice. How well did you understand that? And talk to strangers that don't know the idea and let them critique you on it. But I think practicing is that. The other thing that I would tell you that practice will help you refine the hook, and practice will help you refine your concluding statement. Because as important as the hook is, that conclusion is equally important. That last sentence that you leave people with, I personally think you want to structure every last word of that sentence. You want to leave this lasting impression of, wow, that was okay. I get it. I get what this is all about. So the answer to your question, I hate to say it because it's the answer to a lot of questions, but it's practice.
It's practice. There is no other way. There's no other way. There is the 10,000 hours theory. In order to become an expert, you need to practice your expertise for 10,000 hours, but questioning yourself all along the way. Always go out of your zone of comfort. Always take challenges that's going to push you towards perfection, toward your expertise. And so those 10 hours, you'll be there.
So based on what you just said, 10,000 hours, 5-minute pitch, if you do your pitch about 120,000 times, you should be good at it.
Yeah, well, I mean, practice. And don't never stop on the good enough. Never. If you think you say, oh, this is good enough, that won't work.
Exactly.
You need to have that. No, I'm excellent from A to Z. I'm controlling every single step of the way.
Cool. Okay, so Alex, I think this has been really, really fun. I think in the second, I'll ask you to kind of wrap up. But let's talk for a second. Let's remind everybody a little bit about the program itself, about the competition, because I think the competition is exciting. When I saw that we were giving away a full education, I got pretty excited about it, to be honest with you. I can't wait to meet the person that gets a free master's degree as a result of participating in this. So the first thing that we wanted to tell people is we've had an overwhelming response. We thought we would get a lot of responses. We've had more than we thought. So we actually are not working with the deadline. We're going to have to limit the number of responses. So please get your submission in as quickly as possible to make sure that it gets considered. And then we will notify, we'll have the we'll put some notification out when the competition is closed, but please get it in as quickly as possible. We don't want you to miss the opportunity, especially if you're working on it, for sure. Okay. And then there's multiple stages to the competition. Okay. So keep in mind, right, there's a screening stage, and then there's the submission of the 5-minute pitch. And that's where we'll be, really kind of evaluating them. And from that point on, people start earning prizes. So if you think about this, it's a really, really cool opportunity to get some feedback, even if you, if you don't choose the education, or if you're not a finalist, it's a great opportunity to have some experience doing that. We're going to give everybody some feedback on them. And I think for those that win, it's an opportunity to come spend some time with us in Switzerland. So it's really it's a fantastic thing as far as that goes. So I just want to share one other piece here. Whoops. Okay. And it's really just, does anyone have any questions? All right, let's see. Is there a link where we can watch the first step? You most certainly can. If you actually go to, I'm going to have to find that out. Find out the question, send me to find out where you can watch the first episode. But if you search for it by name, it's definitely out there. I believe they're archived on LinkedIn. You'll be able to see them. Okay. All right. Well, Alex, I'll tell you what, I think that's pretty much most of the questions. We've managed to kind of at least cover them all in groups.
Yep.
So thank you very much. I think this was super insightful. I really appreciate your help with this. Appreciate your help with the judging as well, as you know. So that's going to be some fun. And really just wanted to thank everyone who showed up. I hope you guys are.
Thank you. There's a lot of names here, and thank you very much. There is Dr. Remy that is here as well. I salute him quite a lot. And most of these are my students, and that was very nice to have them here. And it was very interesting for me to share that with you in this moment that we have together. So thank you very much for inviting me.
All right. Okay. All right. Thanks. Well, guess what, guys? That's the end of the Digital Transformation Happy Hour for this week. We'll be on 2 weeks from now again. We've got another really, really cool topic. Follow us on LinkedIn so that you can see all the stuff that we're doing. And good luck with the competition. I hope to see you in Switzerland in the fall.
Yeah. Bye-bye, everyone.